So I'm sitting here recording this at the evening of what must have been one of the hottest summer days I can remember. Today, to talk to you about Dragon Bash. Now, last video we did see the announcement of the festival, the trailer, everything that was scheduled to come, and a rough idea of what the devs were going to be doing. But now the festival's actually in, and it's been out for several days now. I wanted to talk to you guys about what the content was actually like, because in many ways this is a totally new festival for the game. As I explained in the previous video, yeah, we had a Dragon Bash in Living World Season 1, but it was just a part of the story. This time is in a new city, Holbrak, amongst the Norn, with new features, and is completely built under the current festival style, with annual achievements and dailies to work for and so on. So let's see how it goes. Now, most of this video I'm going to have really cool new footage of Holbrak for you to look at, and we'll really be diving in a deep way to what the festival has. But let's open up with the patch notes. We'll go through quick just to be comprehensive. By the way, look at this. Is this a new banner art animation style? We haven't seen the devs do this for ages, have we? Kind of a nice touch. So here, Dragon Bash. It's time for Dragon Bash. It wouldn't be a proper celebration without your attendance. Join me in Holbrak for another moot for the ages. There will be tests of strength, racing, food, song, and most importantly, ale. I'll see you there, unless, of course, you don't enjoy fun. From Newt Whitebear. So Newt, the greatest figurehead within the city of Holbrak amongst the Norn, actually invites us there. I believe this is the mail we get in game. And so the patch notes read, to join the celebration in Holbrak, the new home of the revamped Dragon Bash Festival. Celebrate Tyria's resistance against the Elder Dragons while engaging in a variety of new and returning festive games, including the following. They say there's the Dragon Arena, there's the Hologram Stampede, there's the Pinata Bashing, there's the Dragon Bash Rally, there's the Moa Race, daily festivals, there's Zytaffy returning, there's reward tracks, and the party rages for 3 weeks. Now, each of those little things I'm going to show you more than the patch notes can in a second. So there's a wide range of things going on. I already talked about the fact this was coming to Holbrak, and it's quite interesting. One other side of it, though, is obviously the Sons of Svarnir are in Holbrak too, and they still very much worship and want to work with one of the Elder Dragons, Dragon to them, Jormag. So there's a really cool interplay going on in this festival that I'd completely overlooked or not thought about, and that's the Sons of Svarnir side of things. Just like with the Bazaar of the Four Winds return last year, there is voice acting going on here, and lots of it, new voice acting that we can pay attention to. You might also remember, if you follow my Twitter, that when the Zephyrite's festival returned last year, some of the new voice acting had them whistling a song, and that song ended up being one of these amazing Gregorian chants that we heard in episode 5 of this Living World season. Was totally a hint to the future. So does that mean there's stuff in Dragon Bash 2? Well, I'm titillated by the thought. Next, there were some other general changes. World Polish, they adjust the positions and timing for some scenes in Holbrak to minimize overlap during Dragon Bash. I'm guessing they mean here personal story stuff. I just don't know exactly which moments in the city they're talking about having moved. They've updated the rewards in Dragon Falls Mistborn coffers to give a broader variety of items. Is that a stealth nerf there? A broader variety, meaning you're less likely to get good stuff? They fixed a general bug in which certain accounts had Corsair boots but didn't have credit for the meta achievements. Over in the raid, they fixed a bug with one of the CMs. Over in items, you'll see there's a new depositable collectible into the wallet now. That's the festival tokens, which is nice because I've got a ton of those on one of my random characters, my thief. Zytaffy, you can now eat in bulk. Don't forget Zytaffy, the currency, the sweets of this festival are super old, so having consume all on those obviously wasn't in the game just yet, so that's much of a newer thing, and now they've added that with the return of the festival. And they updated the contents of the dragon coffers rewarded by Dragon Bash. So let's hone in on this. They've updated the contents. I'm going to do a whole section on rewards in a second, but what they've done here is add various dragon themed things as ultra rare drops. And what that means is Tequattle's Hordes, the very rare ascended boxes you can get from killing Tequattle the Sunless in Sparkfly Fen with unique skins on them. They're kind of the plagued looking antique variant ascended skins. Those you can actually now get from an alternate place. It's not just from Tequattle anymore. They also come from this festival. You'd have to open the Dragon Bash coffers. But the drop chance seems extremely low. In fact, looking at some of the drop research on Wiki, last I heard, a day or two ago, people had opened thousands and thousands and thousands of the caches and still not gotten any high rolls. There's also the new Orion Weapons from Dragonfall coming out of them as well. So the devs kind of said, look, what are the really badass items associated with dragons? Let's put them in the Dragon Bash coffers. Personally, I don't think it's worth gambling on, but maybe if you can gather thousands of the things over the duration of the full 3 weeks and open them all at once at the end, maybe you'll get something. Honestly, it's so hard to get your hands on those weapons. I'm kind of tempted to try it, but really, I feel about as likely to get lucky on a Chak egg sack or something. Next, there's some profession changes. The elixir gun on the engineer had a change on fumigate. This was the kind of awkward feeling, almost flamethrower-y skill as you spray alchemical acid out of the thing. They say they fixed a bug that caused this skill to cleanse conditions at a range of 600 while attacking at a range of 450, and it now attacks enemies and cleanses at both 600. Cleaned up the visual effect to better line up with the increased attack range, and Thief had a slight change to one of their traits, Hard to Catch, where a bug was fixed to prevent the trait from incorrectly granting swiftness on top of some of its other effects. There were black line changes, a new chest, new skins. You can pause the video for that if you'd like. And this awesome change down here, improvements and updates. They increased the limit on the number of musical notes that can be played per second on all musical instruments before their skills are forced to cool down. As you guys know, I don't really play much with the instruments in game, but I do have several of them now, and I'm excited to see what that might mean for some of these songs you can get online and be able to play. I wonder what sort of impressive stuff people will be able to come up with now, because I do like that facet of the game, even if I have absolutely no talent for interacting with it. So that's the patch notes. Now let's look at in-game, starting off with Holbrook itself. So it is decorated. One of the nicest things about this festival really is we're getting a festival that's not in Divinity's Reach. I remember being very saddened by that news a while back that it was just going to be the one pavilion in Divinity's Reach they were going to hone in on for lots of the festivals. And of course last year with the return of the Bazaar, and now with this, we seem to be breaking away from that, which I think is great. There's so many awesome places that the devs could use for a festival, and now we get one in Holbrook. If it's their long-term plan to add a new festival regularly now, maybe each year we see the inclusion of a new one, and at that they add them to new maps each time, I'll be thrilled. Maybe the next thing they'll do is find a dead area of the year and put Meetoberfest for the Char in the Black Citadel there. I'd love a festival for the Black Citadel. It's pretty much my favorite town, but I rarely get to use because the way it's logistically laid out in terms of services is a bit of a nightmare. So Holbrook is the one this time. It's a beautiful pairing, and basically what we find has happened to the city is it doesn't snow there for the duration of the festival. Already does quite a lot to change the way that it feels. The lighting is a lot warmer. There are piñatas and fireworks spread all over for you to interact with. Various assets associated with the new things you can do. And most prominently, in the center of the city is a huge Asuran machine that projects a holographic Kraukatoric into the sky as it flies around. It doesn't just fly around, but it also stops to perch on some of the great lodges as it does so, and it's a real spectacle. Not only does this look really good for Holbrook, but I extra appreciate that the devs found a way to reuse that Kraukatoric asset. One of the things that really struck me about the finale of this Living World episode was how cool flying Kraukatoric was, and really it was only a few minutes of gameplay that we got to experience it for. You know, the devs put all this effort and all this time and this amazing work into a really short moment of the story, and I would just fear that they don't get enough value out of all the efforts they put into that. But now you actually get to see and get a feel for Kraukatoric flying around a long time. This full festival, whenever you're in Holbrook, it's hard to miss him. He looks incredible. I'll talk about Kraukatoric as well in a second. But aside from that, there's not really too much else going on with the decorations. I do have to say, it's not as heavy as what we saw with the original Winter's Day or the original Halloween. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing. The truth is, this bar for original Winter's Day and original Halloween was just really, really, really goddamn high. The devs went mental with the decorations back then, and of course, if you remember, there was actually lots of stuff even outside of the cities where they were added. You know, outside of each main city, there'd be a little section with more Winter's Day stuff and more Halloween stuff. Those festivals truly were something to behold. Another little disappointment of mine for this new one is they're kind of reusing some other festival sound effects. Like there's a Winter's Day sound effect that plays a lot in Dragon Bash, and that just doesn't feel right to me. But, you know, the devs have got to cut corners where they can. If this isn't even a full Living World team, right? I think they're a smaller group and they're doing a badass job. So the decorations is just one minor thing. Really, there's the content itself. So let's roll through. There's 2 new adventures to play. There's a standard adventure, as in, think about Heart of Thorns, where the adventures were all different things that change your skills and you had different tasks. And then there's a race adventure, so think like Path of Fire, where a hell of a lot of the adventures tended to have been races. So the type of race it is it a griffin race? Is it something using the new sky scale, because Dragon Bash, and you know, we're riding dragons now? Actually, no, it's a roller beetle race, which I'm perfectly happy with. I think that the roller beetle races are the best races the game has to offer. The devs can make really cool loops throughout the various maps, and they're very fun. Obviously, the beetle itself is acquired from a bit of a fringe area of the game, and increasingly so as time goes forward, and it's something you really have to learn to use and play around with a lot, but they are great. And that comes from someone that adores the griffin races too. I think that flying and the way that that's all handling is brilliant in the game too. But the way that the beetle races can loop into one another, the way that you can have the actual time trials versus the race that you get to participate in versus other people that flares up every now and then, is all excellent. When the devs did the roller beetle races all around Corteria, they said, look, we want to add more of these, and we're getting more of them. They're doing it. It's just they're coming in festivals like here at Holbrack, so it's great. You get to move around the town. You've been watching the course in the footage here. As always, it's such a strange experience for me because it feels like the map was designed for the race, but you know it wasn't. They've just retrofitted, and it just works so perfectly. The slopes work so well, the jumps work so well, all the drifts work so well. It's just great stuff. I guess the fact that in the races they can give us those boosts to give us a bit of a bump wherever we need it must help them a lot when they're implementing these things. The race has a gold reward that you're going to want to go for. It's really not a challenging gold, unlike the Snowdon Drifts one or Brisbane Wildlands. This one you'll pick up very quickly, which is always a shame to me, but there you have it. The other adventure is a race to run around this town breaking piñatas. Now, don't let that confuse you. It does overlap with a generic activity this festival, to just walk around the town breaking piñatas. There's an annual achievement to break loads of them, and you're just going to wander around pressing F, similar to how you wander around carving pumpkins. That's a thing you'll do in Dragon Bash, but there's also, on top of that, a dedicated adventure to break other ones that respawn, and you get access to 3 skills to leap and traverse the town very quickly. It's one of these adventures that's about routing. You want to figure out what order you want to gather the things in and go as quickly as possible. I've not actually watched any videos or looked at any guides on how to do this very fast. I just got a feel for it myself and have my own happy little route that you can see I'm doing in the footage here, and it seems to work. It's pretty tight timing, I'll admit, but as long as I get gold, I don't really mind. And this is the thing that I'll end up doing, most days. It's worth tons of Zytaffy, and the rewards of the festival are very good. We'll get to those soon, so it's always worth picking this up and getting it done. So that's 2 adventures. There is lots more, though. Let's talk about the Effigies. Now, this one's weird. Way back in Living World Season 1, there was the practice of burning effigies. If you remember, there was that big moment in the story where there was the effigy burning ceremony, and that's where Mai Trin leapt forward on behalf of Scarlet Briar and bombed members of the Captain's Council, ultimately getting Theo Ashford. Well, that's back here, but I guess the devs couldn't really figure out anything super fun to do with it. There's just a couple of interactable effigies, dragon effigies off on the side. They remind me of the Grawl in the way they're set up, and just once per day you can run over and set them on fire. I think sometimes daily asks you to do it, sometimes it doesn't. There's really no content here. It's just burn these things in a strange corner of Holbrack. What the devs did do that's quite nice is they put it very close to the Sons of Svanir, who remark on the fact that you're ceremonially burning the dragons, and you get to see how they feel about that. An NPC there actually says, burn them all you like. Dragon, i.e. Jormag to him, resists fire and doesn't care about fire. And now that's an amazing line to me as a story enthusiast, obviously, because I wonder, are the devs genuinely gearing up and thinking about, and I mean they clearly are thinking about, what we all are, which is, what's the next chapter for Guild Wars 2 story? Is it fire versus ice? Primordus versus Jormag? That would be pretty incredible, and immediately you can see that subject material being nodded to right here by these effigies. That's what's fun about it. The story implications, there's not much more than just pressing F. Next, there's something way cooler, the Dragon Arena. So Dragon Arena, I know as the original PvP activity that came with the original Dragon Bash and is now repurposed into the Crown Pavilion event and the Queen's Jubilee. Well, Dragon Arena is in this festival too now. I guess the devs have decided that PvP-oriented activities for festivals aren't worth spending their time on. I think that's a real shame, because they could be a very powerful part of this game. They just need the architecture and infrastructure to be properly seated into queuing of other game modes and have the incentive there. But I guess since we're not in that place and that would take a lot of work, they've not gone with it. Instead, the Dragon Arena returns as a PvE thing. And it's not in a unique new area of Holbrack we've never seen before. They never built a new little mini-map or anything like that. We're going to go out onto the ice near where Keg Brawl is played, but not actually where Keg Brawl is played. So getting some extra use out of a largely open, empty area of the city otherwise. And we have a round-based wave assault enemy game type. There are two versions of it. One, where you just run in on your own and you're kind of out there in the open world with lots of random other players. What will happen is there'll be a wave of random holographic mobs. You clear them out. The more that you kill, the more damage reduction buff you get. And then a boss spawns. And the boss will be some big iconic thing from the game's history. An Eye of Zaitan, the Mega Destroyer, something big, a Vinetooth, something scary, right? I especially like the inclusion of the Vinetooth as one of the great heroes of Holbrack. Sagalkin was slain by such a thing. So, of course, the Norn would advocate adding such a thing for their festival here, if we say that it is now their festival. It's quite well done, you know. They did interesting music for every single boss. You'll really sample the best combat music of the entire game. Boss music from Living World episodes, final boss music from expansions, raiding music. It swaps each time. Every boss too has different mechanics. Like the Eye of Zaitan is the hardest of the lot, which I really like. I'm a bit of a Zaitan fanboy, I'm beginning to realize. And he has a ton of break bars you can break, so you can really have fun diving into that. And basically, you're going to get a lot of achievement points and daily incentive to come through and participate in this. That's the open world version. There's a more interesting party-based one, where you can actually queue up with some friends, go into a more organized, specific variant that is tuned to get genuinely hard the further you go with it. Now, it scales and ramps very slowly. If you're halfway good at the game, you go in there with the support, you go in there with lots of break bar damage potential, you go in there with some damage, you're going to have to play the game for 45 minutes to an hour before it starts to challenge you. But once it does challenge you, it's really difficult, and it's infinite. I love this when MMOs do this, the idea that it just scales and scales and scales, so those enthusiastic no-lifers among us can actually play it and see how high we'll go. And so that's a fun thing, though. There's absolutely no reason, really, to go beyond, I think it's round 20, to kill the Eye of Zaitan there. It's called the Eye Survived achievement. Very simple. I got one of the first things I did in the festival, and it was over. But the feature is really nice. It's not how I would have wanted the Dragon Arena. I think there's still a lot of power in the other concepts, but still, I can see why the devs went the way they did, and they did it very well. Next, we have another feature. Yeah, it's still going. In fact, there's two left to talk about still at this point. We have Moa Racing. So Moa Racing, originally with Dragon Bash, was added to Lion's Arch, and after Dragon Bash went away, Moa Racing stayed. And as far as I remember, Moa Racing back in classic LA was actually something you could put real money on and actually get returns on. It was an actual, like, betting, gambling mechanic that was very slow. So it was more about the fun of the experience rather than getting people addicted to it and abusing them, as I think many of us are concerned about and think about lately. But it was a fun mechanic. In this variant, I think things are quite different. First of all, I get the very distinct impression that Moa Racing is not going to be a permanent fixture of Holbrack. It's only for the festival, and what you'll be doing is gambling Zaitafi, the festival currency, and at that, there's an achievement to gamble and win, you know, whoever you bet on, like 10 times in a row, but there's nothing stopping you from betting on every single Moa in a single race. So really, it's just a Zaitafi stink. It's not very fun. But I will compliment one area of it, and that's that you can spectate your favorite Moa and see how they do in the race. Now, of course, you could just mount up beside them and run along. We certainly are faster than the Moa with mounts in the game at this point. But spectating adds this really nice twist to it, where essentially you mount the Moa though you're not actually mounting it, you're kind of inside it. It's like you are playing as the mower, but you have no control over its movement or whatever. You can fire little fireworks as it runs along. I think this is brilliant. I'd like to see them utilize this more in Living World episodes and other features, dynamic events. This is very cool. What's even better is because no one player has control of the mower, we're all just sort of inside it. Multiple people can spectate the same mower, and you kind of get a bit of an experience that's what a multi-person mount would feel like. Like we're all kind of attached to this one entity moving along. Hey, who knows? Maybe it's testing the waters for some future concept the devs might have. There's also something profoundly social about this, where people have nothing to do but to type in chat while they're watching their mower. So you can type to one another in local chat. If you're spectating the mower that's in the lead, you can tell everyone else to eat your dust, or if you're in the back, you can put like a sad crying face. It's actually really kind of cool. For the spectating experience, brilliant. I just think the itemization side of it was pretty boring. Finally, there is an aspect to the event which takes place outside of the city, which I think is really important for festivals. And so this is holograms. It seems to mostly be Shiver Peak areas, but they're holographic stampede events where essentially every quarter of an hour, a ton of holograms will appear in the wild around Tyria, and it's your job to go spawn them by hitting a switch and kill them. And then you want to move to another area, and another area, and another area. It really seems to be designed with mounts in mind. It feels a lot like Season 1 kind of content, but just calibrated for the Path of Fire days. And you're going to be doing that a lot of time, again, for dailies and getting holograms kills. Honestly, there's not much more going on, except the fact that they also have voice acting beamed to you from across the map as you hear people speak to you. And so there you have it. That's all the stuff you can do throughout the festival. There's quite a wide range. It's going to be here for 3 weeks, and so far I'm very satisfied with it. It's basically a new thing added to the game, and I'm really happy to be able to do a video like this at all, right? This reminds me of 2012, when the first time we see Halloween, and I get to do a video about a new festival. Well, here it is, a video about a new festival. Fantastic. I'm not done fully. Let's talk about dialogue and then rewards. Dialogue first. So yeah, there is lots of new dialogue. It's kind of integrated with the existing stuff in Holbrook. Like, they never removed some of the standard conversations that are happening. Particularly, the Great Lodge is brilliant, because as you walk into the Great Lodge, you hear the actual Dragon Bash song play louder and louder as you go through the doors, and as you walk away from the Great Lodge, it gets quieter and quieter. An excellent piece of ambience that I was thrilled to see how the devs had implemented. But then, if you pay close attention to lots of the new revelers and partygoers that have spawned around, you will see them talking. A lot of it's very funny stuff. There's a whole conversation about an oyster eating competition between an Asura and a Char, and you can't imagine how this Asura could possibly beat a Char in an eating competition, but he suggests that no one really knows Asura anatomy. Maybe he has 4 stomachs. There's a really creepy and hilarious character who is obsessed with the commander, wondering what kind of clothes the commander wears, wondering if they came to the festival, and you can kind of just listen to them muttering to themselves in an exceptionally creepy way. There are the brilliant little hints from the Sons of Svanir, kind of an ugly sound effect on one of them, honestly, talking about how much they like Jormag and Dragon, and some of these mind control elements of Jormag maybe being emphasized a bit more, which I quite like, because maybe we can dig into that more with him and see how that was different to Morgemoth, for example. And overall, it adds a lot to the festival. I would recommend, again, another YouTuber that I very often do. I think he's one of the most talented guys on the scene. He's called Rileski. There'll be a link in the description. Every time there's a new patch, this guy goes in-game and records all the dialogue for you guys to listen. Now, I know for a fact with my own projects, like the personal story, this stuff takes a long time to compile, and he is the most exhaustive guy. It's one thing to read it on Wiki, it's another thing to get that true experience. He has one up on Dragon Bash and lots of other recent patches. The dude's incredible, and you guys should definitely check it out if you want that extra value as soon as my video is over in a second. So, let's close it out by talking about rewards and another announcement the devs just came out with. So, what do you get? Why would we want to do this? Well, actually, a lot of reasons. First, Living World Season 4 currencies. So there has been a lot of praise for this and a lot of complaints about this. Basically, this festival allows you to turn Zytaffy into Jawbreakers. It's kind of like candy corn going into candy corn cobs. And every Jawbreaker you have, the price of which I think is shrinking as the festival goes along, you can trade at a vendor for 50 of any of the new Living World currencies you'd like. You could get 50 Kralkatite straight up. You could get 50 Diafluorite and so on. Now, this is amazing, especially with the timing. Guild Wars has been on a hell of a roll ever since the most recent Living World release. We had the finale, where, of course, we had the new legendary added, Exordium, the great sword with all the special animations and effects. Then following that, very quickly, we had Vision came into the game, the legendary trinket. We had the raid and the legendary ring. This is all lots and lots and lots of the new currencies that has made people have to play a lot on those maps. That's something I really value and I think was very powerful, especially back with Season 3, where everybody then feels like these maps are super full while we wait for the new season or the next big thing. Now this festival comes out, everybody's desperate for these materials, and boom, you can get them extremely easily via the festival. It kind of comes at the cost of all the activity on the other maps, which I think is to the detriment of the broader health of the game. But hey, for most people, they're just going to see that this stuff's really easy to get now, and they'll want to play the festival. So that's probably one of the main incentives. Another new reward is for completing the dailies, a bit like how Super Adventure Box, you do the dailies enough days in a row and you get a totally new skin. Well, these are holographic things, holographic versions of all the precursors in the game. So if there's a single precursor you like, you can now get a holographic version. It's essentially a really long-term incentive to keep playing Dragon Bash, not just for this festival, but next year's one, the one after, so that you can round out that entire set. There's the Quarters Hordes that I talked about a little bit earlier. There's a new holographic helmet that you can get for your character, looks pretty cool. I think there's a new Gordon mini, there usually is. You can give Gordon Zytaffy for this festival. Gordon, of course, the Choya didn't even exist back when this originally was implemented. Choya at all hadn't even been conceived. And finally, the coolest reward from any festival that I've ever seen. Seriously. What is it? A guild decoration. I love covering the new guild decorations. I love that the devs still put them in with every new release like this. And my god, is it fantastic. Remember what I opened this video talking about? The giant holographic full-size Kralkatoric that flies around and perches on the buildings and whatnot? What if I told you there is an ultra prestige guild hall decoration, definitely designed for crowdfunding, that allows you to get your own Elder Dragon in your guild hall. Holographic, though, maybe. Because that's exactly what has happened. You can get your own holographic Kralkatoric. Check it out. Here's some footage of my guild hall right now. We actually already own 2 of these, one for each branch of Spud, both the EU Spud and the NA Spud. We gathered, I think it was 2,600-ish gold to buy our first one on the first day of the festival, and then we gathered another 2,600-ish gold for a second one on day 2. We're currently building our third. I love the idea of getting, 4 or 5 of these dragons in a single haul, and we're totally working on it. And, you can put them in some kind of tornado formation or whatever. You can get the dragon in there. It's absolutely bonkers. Clearly the biggest, craziest decoration they've ever added. My god, I remember at the Heart of Thorns launch thinking those Order of Whispers globes were big. Look at the kind of stuff the devs doing now. But I think this is what the community likes with Guild Hall decorations, and well damn, it's incredible. And again, even more value out of all those amazing Kralkatoric animations and so on. So, that's the festival. Hope you guys enjoyed my little chat about it. I do want to close the video out by pointing out the devs did another reveal straight out of the back of it. It was kind of prematurely revealed because of data mining, but hey, what are you going to do? Check this out. Coming soon, World vs. World Core Swap Special Event. This looks like the next thing to look forward to after Dragon Bash. As the old saying goes, you never truly know your enemy until you've defeated them and stolen their profession skills. You can finally put this wisdom into practice in your everyday life during the World vs. World Core Swap Special Event from July 5th to 12th. So I think this actually overlaps with Dragon Bash. Maybe the last week of Dragon Bash overlaps with this. Defeating an enemy player in World vs. World will spawn a glowing orb over their corpse for a short time. Claim the orb to grant you some knowledge of your enemy's profession. You keep your own weapon skills, but gain access to a special skill that allows you to swap into a new heal, utility, and elite from the defeated player's profession. The healing, utility, and elite skills you obtain are the same for every enemy of a given profession, and the cooldowns persist when you swap to and from the Purloined set. For example, when you defeat a thief, you'll get Withdraw, Scorpion Wire, Blinding Powder, Scale Venom, and Thieves Guild. In addition to these wonderful toys, there's massively boosted rewards you guys can see on the screen there. So that's their next World vs. World shake-up, and that's their next bonus event, like week-long event. We've obviously seen a lot of PvE-oriented ones. Well, here's a World vs. World-oriented one. I'd like to see them do something for competitive PvP at some point as well. Obviously, it's a bit more challenging in that regard, but maybe they can look at the reward incentives. But wow, what an incredible thought that is. And we'll have lots of juicy things to look into and see how that's implemented. I'll definitely be looking at it now that I want diamond chests in World vs. World so regularly. So we'll see that on some upcoming videos. There you go, though, guys. That's Dragon Bash. I hope you enjoyed my chat, and I'd love to see what you thought about the festival in the comments, and if I've missed anything major. How do you feel about, like, maybe the Living World rewards or the Dragon for the Guild Hall? And also, you might have missed it, but just before I posted this video, I did one on my thoughts for PvP balance. I know not many of you are interested in that, but it's an hour-long conversation of my hopes for the next balance patch, which is also due pretty soon. So maybe have a look at what you think about that if you're into PvP at all. And until next time, guys, I'll see you shortly.